Hey folks, Staff Sergeant Fortner here once again. Today, we're gonna Hey folks, Staff Sergeant Fortner here once again. Today we're gonna be talking about our 15-passenger vans, specifically the ones we have here at the schoolhouse. All right, now I want you to know 15-passenger vans vary from base to base. We're just gonna go over how we inspect ours here at the schoolhouse. Most of the same principles and concepts apply, even when you're inspecting other vans out in the career field. All right. So first thing we're gonna look at is our lights. All right. We have our headlights up front. We want to make sure both the headlights and high beams are clear in color. We have our turn signals and marker lights right here. We want to make sure they're amber in color. We want to make sure each light and the whole head unit itself is securely mounted. It's not cracked, damaged, or broken, or anything like that. We inspect our windshield from up front. We want to make sure securely mounted, not cracked, damaged, or broken. We don't have any big old cracks in it, and no illegal stickers. And it's not dirty and you can actually see through it, all right? We're going to inspect our wiper blades all around here. We want to make sure that we have enough rubber on the blade itself to properly clean the window. And so, we're going to inspect the wiper blades. Make sure that it has rubber on it, securely mounted, it's not broken, tearing, or anything like that. And then we're not going to have any metal on glass contact on our windshield and leave any big scrapes. All right. We can also inspect our mirrors while we're out here. We want to make sure they're securely mounted, not cracked, damaged, or broken. We also have little marker lights on the side, little turn signals. We want to make sure those are securely mounted and they're amber in color. I know it looks white, but if you see the bulb right over here, proceed to me, please. You can see the bulb itself is actually amber in color. All right. And then we're inspecting the actual mirror itself, making sure it's not cracked. All right. Next, we're going to go into the engine bay. I'll open this up. Opening up our engine bay, we're going to work. I like to work myself from right to left. Going from right to left, we have our coolant right here. Coolant reservoir. We want to make sure we're above the minimum, below the maximum. As you can see, we are. We have our brake fluid right here. We want to open that up. Make sure we have brake fluid. We do. We have plenty of brake fluid in there. And close that back up. All right. We have now this vehicle is one of the things I said that are different about it. This one's a little different. The battery itself is mounted way deep underneath the seat. To actually properly inspect the battery, you need to remove the seat. We're not going to do that. We're only going to inspect what we can easily and accessibly get to. However, there's a battery terminal right here. If we need to jump start this vehicle, we would go to this terminal. All right. So we're going to inspect this terminal, make sure it's not filled with corrosion or anything. Moving right along, we got a whole bunch of hoses, wires, and everything in this engine compartment. We want to make sure none of them are loose. None are cracked, frayed, nothing's leaking all over the place. We got wires in here. We want to make sure our wires aren't frayed either. We have our engine oil right here. I'm gonna pull that out, wipe it off. Put it back in, check it, make sure that we're between the two dots, which we are. All right. Moving on this way, it's kind of hard to see, but right here is our alternator. We're inspecting our alternator. We want to make sure it's securely mounted, not cracked, damaged, broken. Ours is belt driven, so we want to inspect that belt, make sure it has no more than half an inch of play. Another thing we got to inspect is our water pump. However, if you follow this, all right, the way I always like to securely find the water pump, go to the coolant reservoir, we follow our hose, it sticks in here. Our water pump is internal in this vehicle, all right? It's gear driven. We can't really inspect to make sure it's not missing any hardware or anything like that with this. So all we can do is make sure that from what we can see, it looks like it's in good working order. Moving right along, over here we have our power steering fluid. We have plenty of power steering fluid. And we're gonna apply the same concept that we did to find the water pump to find the power steering pump. It's underneath. We'll do that here in a second once we start getting underneath the vehicle. All right. And we have our washer fluid. Inspect. You can kind of see down in there. This might be another one to look at underneath. deep down in there, making sure we have enough washer fluid. All right, it's way deep down in there. That little, you see that white part right there? That's what we're looking at. We'll look at it underneath, folks. All right. Now, we didn't inspect transmission fluid in this vehicle. We didn't make sure it was leaking. This vehicle particularly has a closed transmission, so you can't actually add or take away transmission fluid. It's all sealed up. They have to do it at an actual machine shop. All right. We're gonna get it underneath the vehicle. Let's see if you can see this, folks. So right here, let's see if I can get it. Right there, this metal part right here, follow this tube. That's the same tube that ran from our power steering hose. That's our power steering pump right there. Cut and edit that all weird. Coming over to this side, we've got our tire. You inspected one tire, you inspected a million tires. All right, we're always looking for the same thing. This is a steering axle, right? Steering axle, we want to make sure we have at least 4/32 of tread depth on this vehicle, which we do. We want to inspect the actual sidewall of the tire, make sure it doesn't have any cut, abrasions, or anything like that. Moving along, we have our rim. We want to make sure that our rim isn't damaged, it's free and clear of any illegal welds, and it's not bent up or anything like that. We have our valve stem right here. We would check the tire inflation from the valve stem with the tire inflation gauge. Now, if you notice, we have a hubcap cover, all right? Hubcap cover, are we gonna take that off every single time that we inspect the vehicle? No, that's gonna cause unnecessary wear and tear damage to this vehicle. But there are certain things we can look for to see if anything's wrong with our lug nuts, all right? A, if I could move this around, that means something's wrong. That's the first thing. B, if there was any rust trails coming up underneath here, that indicates looseness in our lug nuts. They are rusting out and they're coming loose and everything like that. If we saw any of those, then yes, we pop this off and check it, all right? But we don't want to cause any unnecessary wear and tear and damage to our vehicle. So we're gonna leave that on without inspecting it, without inspecting the lug nuts. We did our checks to make sure that everything's good, all right? From here, if you look underneath here, you can see our suspension. We have a coilover suspension in this vehicle in the front. All right, we want to inspect that coil, make sure it's securely mounted, not cracked, damaged, or broken. All right, it has a shock absorber in it. We want to make sure that shock absorber is not leaking. We want to make sure it's not rusted out or anything like that, and it's good to go, free and clear. That little surface rust, totally fine. That's average wear and tear on a vehicle. We're gonna move underneath the vehicle. We have our caliper. We want to inspect our caliper, make sure it's securely mounted. All the hoses and lines leading to it aren't cut, damaged, or broken. And then we want to make sure if we can see the pads, it's very hard to do. We want to make sure that we have nothing on the pads. What that's clamping down onto is the rotor itself. That's the rotor right there. It has a dust cover on it to keep any contaminants off of it. If that wasn't there, we want to make sure that the rotor doesn't have any deep grooves or anything like that would prevent the vehicle from braking properly. Right here, we have power steering box and steering linkage. Right here, we have our steering linkage. We want to inspect our steering linkage is securely mounted. It's not rusted through or anything like that. Securely mounted, not cracked, damaged, or broken, not missing any hardware. We want to make sure our steering linkage is securely mounted, not cracked, damaged, broken, and not missing any hardware. All right, moving back this way. Right here, folks, we have our exhaust system. We're inspecting our exhaust system to make sure it's securely mounted, it's not cracked, damaged, or broken, and that there's no excessive rust or soot trails or anything like that. We also want to make sure that it has its little safety hangers on it holding it up. Over here, we go back a little further, we have our fuel tank. It runs all the way back over this way. That big black box right there, that is our fuel tank. Underneath here as well, one other thing we can inspect, it'll go the right way. One other thing we can inspect is our frame. Our frame runs along the entire vehicle, all the way underneath it. We want to make sure it's not bent, damaged, warped, or anything like that. We want to inspect that all the way down on both sides of the vehicle. Moving right along. We have our rear axle. We're going to start on our tire like we always do. Start on the outside, work our way in. Non-steering axle, 230 seconds for the tread depth. Make sure it's wearing evenly as well. We've got our condition of our sidewall. We want to make sure that our sidewall doesn't have any bulges, cuts, or abrasions or anything like that. Inspect the insulation of the tire with the tire inflation gauge at the valve stem. We have our rim. Want to make sure it's free and clear of any legal weld marks, rust, damage, or anything like that. Once again, we have our cover over there, right? We're not going to pull that off every single time to inspect the vehicle. So we're looking once again. If I can move this, that means something's wrong. If there were rust trails coming underneath it, then something's wrong. Then we pull it off and inspect and try and troubleshoot as best we can. But we're not going to cause unnecessary wear and tear to this vehicle by pulling that on and off 3-4 times a day. All right. Now, right there, we have our drive shaft and transmission. It runs the whole length of the vehicle. It's on the other side of that heat shield right there. Oh, no, heat shield right there. So it runs the whole length back. You want to inspect both sides right there. Those are called U-joints. You want to inspect those U-joints, make sure they are not cracked, damaged, broken, and that there's nothing, no debris or anything like that sticking in between them. All right. We're going to move to the rear suspension now. Our rear suspension, as you can see, uses leaf springs. These right here are leaf springs. Want to make sure that they are securely mounted on both sides with our leaf spring hangers, which are, wow, come on, go up, which are right here. All right, let's try this again. All right, moving on to our suspension. Our suspension system, we have leaf springs in the rear of this vehicle, all right? Right here, we have our shock absorber. We wanna make sure the shock absorber is securely mounted, it's not leaking, cracked, damaged, broken, missing any hardware. We have our U-bolts. Oh, okay. Wait, oh, rats. Knock that out of whack. We have our U-bolts. Right there, it's that thing that's making a U over top of it, coming down. We wanna make sure it's securely mounted on both sides, not cracked, damaged, broken, not missing any hardware. We have our actual leaf springs. We want to make sure they're not cracked, damaged, broken. They're not missing any hardware either. And that they're securely mounted to the frame at the leaf spring hangers, which are right here on both ends. We want to make sure those aren't missing any hardware. And they're not rusted through. There's no damage to them, and that they're operable. All right. Now for the rear brakes. So we can zoom in over there. Nope, go down. Wrong way. That doesn't really work. Okay, come on. Work with me. All right, let's see if we can't get underneath here. For our rear brakes, once again, we have a dust cover back here. And we have drum brakes in the rear. Drum brakes in the rear. We want to make sure if that dust cover wasn't there, they were securely mounted, not cracked, damaged, broken. There was no debris in between them, and that in between the drums and the lining, there was nothing that would prevent it from breaking. We also want to inspect our brake hoses and lines, which run across right there. Our hoses and lines, we want to make sure they're securely mounted, not cracked, damaged, broken, not leaking, not cut, anything like that. Nothing that would prevent us from braking. Moving to the rear of the vehicle, folks. We finally made it to the rear of the vehicle. We want to inspect our brake lights and clearance lights. They need to be red in color, all right? Now, I know we talk about a lot of commercial vehicles in our... Folks, we finally made it to the rear of the vehicle. We're going to look at all of our lights back here. All right, I know we talk about a lot of commercial vehicles in our course. However, 16 passenger van doesn't necessarily follow all the CMV rules. It does follow regular rules of the road, however. All right, everybody, we made it to the back of the vehicle, finally. So we're gonna inspect our lights back here. On this vehicle specifically, we have our clearance lights up top, which is red in color. We have our turn signals and brake lights. Those are red in color, all right? We have our reverse lights. Those need to be clear in color, all right? I know we talk about a lot of CMVs in our course, and we can talk about how all the turn signals need to be amber in color. That is for very specific vehicles and all that stuff. This vehicle does not have to follow those specific rules. All right? We're gonna open up the door. We wanna make sure our doors open and close properly. There's nothing holding us back. There's nothing stopping them from opening. They stay locked open when you open them all the way. We also have our fire extinguisher back here. We're gonna inspect our fire extinguisher, make sure that it's securely mounted and that it's in the operable range. We are in the green. All right. We also have our jack and lug wrench all back here as well. We want to make sure we have those just in case we were to get a flat tire. Speaking of getting a flat tire, if you look right here, one of the last things we want to inspect underneath the vehicle is our spare tire. Making sure that we actually have it. What good's a spare tire if you get a flat and you don't have it? I'll tell you, it's not very good at all. We can close this back up, make sure it closes properly. Now, we got a few last things over on this side of the vehicle. By a few last things, I mean one thing. One thing only. We'll start climbing in it. And that is our fuel cap. Now, we all know fuel caps are supposed to be securely mounted, right? What do you do when your vehicle comes without a fuel cap? Bum, bum, bum. You just got to make sure that there's no debris. And then it's got this little cover thing. You just want to make sure that it's got this little cover thing in it to prevent anything from falling in. All right, now we're going to climb inside of the vehicle. All right, so I'll meet you on the inside. All right, climbing in the vehicle. We're going to get in our vehicle. What's the first thing you're going to check when you get in a vehicle? Trick question, it's your seatbelt. Should always be your seatbelt. Make sure it latches in. Make sure it isn't cut, damaged, or frayed, right? We're gonna turn it on without turning it over. And we're gonna inspect all of our dash indicators. I wanna make sure that all of my dash indicators turn on and turn off properly. And that it gives me that wonderful, wonderful little beepy sound when I leave a door open. It literally brightens my day every time I hear that, folks. Next, what we want is if their door is closed properly, which they do. So after inspecting all of our dash lights and everything like that, we want to inspect our turn signals and all of our indicators, all right? We want to inspect our right turn signal, our left turn signal, our four-ways, make sure all those come on. And then we're going to turn our headlights on and make sure our high beam indicator comes on. All of our indicators do come on. At this point, you could also have someone step out and help you inspect. We're going to grab Sergeant Boswell here in a minute to help us inspect everything. So, after that, one of the major things you need to inspect is your horn as well. Hit that horn. We want to inspect our windshield from the inside. We want to make sure our windshield, once again, isn't cracked, damaged, or broken. There wasn't anything on the inside that we couldn't see from the outside. Make sure, once again, no illegal stickers, nothing blocking our vision, and that it is clean. We have our mirrors. We want to make sure our mirrors, once again, we can see them from the inside. Nothing we missed from the outside. Securely mounted. And another big thing, making sure that they're in the proper place for us to actually see. All right. And so that way, when you're driving, you're not trying to adjust your mirrors and drive at the same time. You want to also inspect this mirror as well and make sure that one is in the proper place. Another thing we want to inspect is our heater and defroster. So we're going to turn our heater on, turn it all the way to heat, turn it all the way to the defrost mode. Now you might have to unbuckle to get all the way up, depending on your van, but you want to stick your hand up to make sure you actually feel the heat, feel the air being blown through the defroster. Then you want to turn it all the way to the front. make sure you feel the hot air actually coming out of the vents. Those are two separate checks, the heater and the defroster. You gotta check both of those. Turn that off. This is Missouri in the middle of summer, and it's just way too hot to have that running. We're gonna buckle back up. We're gonna turn the vehicle on, and now we're going to do our exterior lights check, all right? I've got Sergeant Boswell outside to help me. I'm gonna turn this on. We have a turn signal. We have another turn signal. We have our four-way indicator. We have our headlights. And we have our high beam. All of those are working. We're now going to move to the rear beam, which those lights are working as well. We have our left turn signal. Right turn signal. Four ways. Brake lights. And reverse lights. Brake and pull awesome sauce. Alright, folks. This bus. We only have two things really that we need to inspect on this van that are left. One of the first major things we want to do a parking brake check. Alright? Pull the parking brake up. Pull our handle actually up right here. We're going to put the vehicle in drive, and we're going to give it just a little bit of gas, tug against the parking brake, making sure that the parking brake holds. It does. Now we want to do our service brake check. One of the things we're going to do in our service brake check is we're going to take our foot on the brake pedal. I'll open the door so you can see a little better. Take our foot on the brake pedal. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, and on that third one we're going to hold. And once it settles, we want to make sure that for 5 seconds it doesn't sink any deeper. As you can clearly see, once it's settled, it hasn't sunk in any deeper or anything. Alright? Then, the last check we're going to do, we have our actual service brake check. I'm going to back up so we get a little more room and get a little more view, but I'm going to explain what I'm going to do first. Alright? We're going to make sure we have enough space. We're going to put our seatbelt on. We're going to do everything that we can safely. We're then going to drive forward until we reach 5 miles an hour. Once we reach 5 miles an hour, we're going to apply the service brake, feeling to make sure that the brakes don't pull to one side or the other, and there's no anomalies in our brake system. All right? So I'm going to back up real quick, and then I will show you guys how to do that. Wouldn't you know it, this vehicle passed. Hey folks, that's how we inspect our vans here. Hey folks, thanks for joining us. That's how you inspect 15-passenger vans. If you have any questions, please contact your instructor, pass them on that way. Make sure to always be safe out there, wear your PPE, wear your steel toes and everything like that. Have a good day. Thanks for watching.